Late afternoon light stretched across Mount Pleasant, soft and gold. But Hannah Cooper felt none of its warmth as she stepped out of the small dental clinic where she worked. She walked slowly, her tote bag slipping against her shoulder, every step heavier than the last. It wasn't fatigue. It wasn't the long shift. It was something colder, sharper, a weight that settled into her chest the moment she saw the text from her husband hours earlier. "Linda's here." Just 2 words, but they were enough to hollow her out completely. Hannah didn't rush home. She dragged her feet along the quiet, tree-lined streets, moving as if a few extra minutes outside could change what waited behind her front door. But she already knew better. When Linda Cooper decided to drop by, the whole house changed temperature. The walls felt thinner, the air tighter, every sound amplified by tension. By the time Hannah reached their townhouse, a narrow, 2-story place with white trim and a porch too small for real comfort, her stomach was turning. She paused at the steps, inhaled once, deeply, like someone preparing for a necessary pain. Then she pushed the door open as quietly as she could. Voices hit her before she even stepped inside. Not voices, an argument. Tyler's voice, strained and irritated. "Mom, you can't keep showing up like this. We've talked about this." Linda's voice, sharp enough to cut glass. "If she were a decent wife, I wouldn't have to." Hannah froze in the entryway, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. Tyler again, frustrated. "She hasn't done anything wrong. You're twisting everything." Linda snapped back. "I'm telling you the truth, Tyler. She's the reason our family is falling apart." Hannah didn't move. She didn't breathe. She stood just inside the doorway, shoes still on, listening to a conversation that had repeated itself in different shapes for 5 years, ever since the day she became a Cooper. She hated eavesdropping, but stepping inside now would only pour gasoline on the fire. Linda kept going, her voice rising. "She's turned you against your own mother, against your blood." Tyler let out a long exhale she could practically feel through the walls. "Mom, please, not this again." Hannah closed her eyes, that familiar ache blooming in her chest. For 5 years, she had tried everything to earn Linda's acceptance. Holidays planned perfectly, birthdays remembered, gifts chosen carefully, Sunday dinners cooked exactly the way Linda preferred, even when she knew Linda would only criticize the seasoning or the presentation, or the fact that Hannah dared to host it all. She had been kind, patient, respectful. She had shown up when Linda needed help. Even during the months of her pregnancy when her feet were so swollen she could barely stand. She had given Linda the grandchild she'd always claimed to want so desperately. And in return, insults whispered as if Hannah couldn't hear. Accusations murmured behind closed doors. Frozen stares across dinner tables. Snide comments disguised as concern. And then, the moment Hannah would never forget, Linda demanding a DNA test the very week Noah was born, insisting it was just to be sure. That memory still burned. From the living room now, she heard Linda's voice twist into something triumphant, as if listing Hannah's sins were a satisfaction in itself. "I told you from the start, Tyler. She tricked you. She's not the woman you think she is." Hannah's grip on the doorframe tightened. 5 years of trying to earn even a fragment of respect. And still Linda spoke as if she were an intruder in her own home. She finally stepped forward, her breath steadying not from calm, but resolve. The visit she dreaded had begun long before she walked through the door, and something in her gut told her this time would be worse than all the others combined. Years before she ever stepped foot in Mount Pleasant, Hannah Parker, back then still carrying her father's name, had been a different woman entirely. At 22, she lived in a small apartment in North Charleston, juggling 2 part-time jobs and finishing the last of her coursework. She had earned not 1 but 2 degrees, both with honors. Her professors expected her to leave the country someday. NGO work, international development, maybe even graduate school abroad. She spoke about those dreams often, her eyes bright, her plans detailed and ambitious. But life had a way of shifting under her feet. When she found out she was pregnant, she had been scared, yes, but hopeful. She imagined reshaping her future, making room for a child while still chasing the career she wanted. She thought her family would support her. Instead, her father, Raymond Parker, unleashed a cruelty she had never seen so plainly until then. He mocked her for ruining her life. He spat insults about the baby. He called her irresponsible, pathetic, a burden he never asked for. It started with shouting, then shoving doors, then breaking plates. His temper, once unpredictable but slow-burning, became immediate, volatile. The neighbors called the police the first time. Hannah called them the second. Her mother called them the third. When Raymond threatened to throw Hannah out while she was 7 months pregnant, by the time the baby arrived, tiny, vulnerable, eyes barely open, Hannah could no longer stay. She packed what she could in a single night, trembling as she stuffed baby clothes and textbooks into a duffel bag. Her mother helped her load the car quietly, casting terrified looks toward the house as if Raymond might burst out at any moment. With a newborn in her arms and no stable income, Hannah tried to rebuild. She worked long shifts, took night classes, interviewed for positions she was overqualified for but physically too exhausted to pursue. Her mother, worried and worn down herself, finally said one evening over the kitchen table, "What you need, honey, is someone steady, someone who won't explode, someone calm." It wasn't romantic advice. It was survival. A few months later, she met Tyler Cooper. He was nothing like the men she'd dated in college. No ambition to travel, no polished charm. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage in North Charleston, his hands always stained with grease, his voice soft and unassuming. He didn't flirt. He didn't push boundaries. He simply asked if she needed help carrying a box from the back of her car. That was it. A moment of gentleness in a life that had been all noise and chaos. Hannah didn't fall in love with him, not at first. Maybe not even later in the way stories romanticize. But she recognized a steadiness in him, something quiet and safe. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't mock her. He didn't question why she flinched when someone closed a door too loudly. He held Noah carefully, like he understood the weight of a father's role, even if he wasn't one by blood. He showed up, consistently, predictably, kindly, and in the absence of love, safety can feel like salvation. She chose Tyler not because he swept her away, but because he grounded her, because in the shadow of Raymond Parker's rage, Tyler Cooper was the first man who made her feel like breathing didn't have to hurt. When Hannah thought back to the early years of her marriage, the memories always came in 2 layers, one warm, one ice cold. The warm layer was Tyler, quiet, patient, the kind of man who fixed things before they broke and apologized even when he wasn't the one at fault. He never raised his voice, never slammed doors, never made her feel small. He embraced Noah as if the boy were his own blood and never once made her feel guilty for the past she carried. The cold layer was Linda. From the moment she learned Tyler had married a girl from North Charleston with a baby, Linda Cooper had been polite, Charleston polite. The kind of politeness that felt like walking barefoot on broken shells. Soft tones, sharp edges. In public, Linda smiled sweetly, her southern drawl warm and smooth. In private, she snapped like winter branches under too much pressure. She made it clear from day one that Hannah had trapped Tyler into marriage, that he was too good-natured to see through manipulative women, that he deserved someone who came from a real family. Her favorite phrase, Hannah remembered it vividly, was delivered with an almost affectionate pat on the arm. "Bless your heart! You really didn't think this through, did you?" In the beginning, Hannah tried. She really did. She baked Linda's favorite pies, drove her to doctor appointments, bought her small gifts on holidays. She sat through lectures on proper Southern etiquette, proper household finances, Proper wife behavior. She smiled through comments about her education. 2 degrees, but can't keep a man, and bit her tongue when Linda insisted Hannah was using Tyler for stability. But politeness in Charleston wasn't kindness. It was a weapon, a performance, and Linda wielded it with expertise. Soon the rumors began. Hannah caught wind of them through a co-worker one day. Soft whispers passed around like Sunday gossip. They say Noah isn't Tyler's. They say she had him with someone else and tricked Tyler into marrying her. Hannah's hands shook the entire drive home. She confronted Linda gently, desperately hoping it was some misunderstanding. Linda didn't even bother denying it. She simply shrugged and said, "People deserve the truth, sweetheart. I'm just protecting my son." No amount of grace or effort could thaw Linda's hostility. She criticized everything. The way Hannah fed Noah, the way she spoke to him, the brand of diaper she bought, the pediatrician she chose, the fact that she worked part-time instead of staying home, the fact that she went back to school instead of staying home, the mere existence of her ambitions. If Hannah wore makeup, she was trying too hard. If she didn't, she was letting herself go. Every Sunday dinner turned into a performance. Hannah carefully measuring her words. Tyler caught between peacekeeping and silent guilt. Linda watching from across the table with the cold, appraising stare of someone cataloging flaws. Over 5 years, Hannah built a home piece by piece. Baby toys tucked in baskets, framed photos on the hallway wall, soft blankets draped across the couch. She poured herself into motherhood, into work, into giving Noah the stable childhood she never had. But every time she took a step forward, Linda pushed her 2 steps back. It wasn't loud, explosive abuse. It was the quiet kind that seeped into walls, into dinner conversations, into the delicate spaces between husband and wife. A Southern Cold War, polished, polite, and absolutely devastating. And Hannah fought it alone. That night, the house felt unusually still. Dinner was done, the dishes washed, and Noah already asleep upstairs, his small nightlight casting a soft glow under his bedroom door. Hannah moved quietly through the hallway, planning to grab a blanket from the linen closet before settling in with some work emails. But as she passed the edge of the living room, she stopped. Linda's voice drifted out, sharp, familiar, yet something in it made Hannah's skin prickle. Because for the first time in years, Linda said her name. Not that girl. Not your little project. Not her. But Hannah. Just Hannah. The sound of it was wrong, too deliberate, too practiced. Hannah froze, her hand hovering over the closet door handle. Linda never used her name unless she wanted something, and never in a tone that soft. She stepped back, barely breathing, the shadows from the hallway stretching around her as she listened. Linda was sitting on the couch. Hannah could picture it perfectly, her rigid posture, her pearls resting neatly at her collarbone, her spine straight as a hymn book. Tyler was somewhere across from her, likely rubbing the back of his neck the way he always did when stressed. Linda spoke again, her voice lowered to a conspiratorial murmur. Hannah wasn't faithful to you, Tyler. She had an affair with Chase Miller long before you came into the picture. A cold wave washed over Hannah, her heart pounding so hard she felt it in her throat. Chase. She hadn't heard that name aloud in years. Tyler's voice came next, confused, uneasy. Mom. Hannah told me they broke up months before she found out she was pregnant. Linda exhaled sharply, the sound half scoff, half pity. That's what she wanted you to believe. She planned this. She got pregnant on purpose, Tyler, to force a connection with Chase, maybe even to ruin his marriage. Hannah's breath caught. Chase had never been married when they were together. Linda knew nothing about that relationship. Yet she crafted her lie with such confidence it felt almost rehearsed. Tyler spoke again, softer this time. I don't think she'd do something like that. Linda pressed on, relentless. She demanded money from him to keep quiet. Thousands. And when he refused, she ran straight to you. You were always the gentle one, the easy one. Each sentence landed like a blow. Hannah gripped the hallway wall, her knuckles white, fighting back the rising dizziness. It wasn't just lies, it was a story, a full plotline, a narrative designed to destroy every bit of trust between her and Tyler. Tyler hesitated again, his pause long enough to make Hannah's stomach drop. Mom, why are you telling me this now? Linda leaned in. Hannah could hear the smug certainty in her voice. Because she's tearing this family apart. I'm protecting you. Protecting all of us. Hannah swallowed hard, her mouth dry. Linda didn't believe she was saving a family. She believed she was restoring one without Hannah in it. From where she stood, Hannah could almost see Tyler's expression. The confusion, the hurt, the quiet battle between loyalty to the woman who raised him and the woman he married. Two women he loved in different, conflicting ways. And Linda had just lit a match between them. This evening, this one overheard moment, was the first crack in a foundation Hannah thought she could keep patching forever. She knew with a sinking certainty that nothing would be the same after this. Hannah stayed perfectly still in the hallway, barely daring to breathe. The conversation in the living room shifted, subtle at first. Then, with a sudden, sickening clarity that made her heart begin to hammer painfully against her ribs, Linda lowered her voice, the tone smooth and coaxing, the way Southern women often spoke right before saying something vicious. Tyler, you need to think about what's best for the child. Not your child. Not Noah. Just the child. Hannah's stomach knotted. Tyler sounded wary. What are you talking about? Linda sighed the way a woman sighs when she's about to pretend she's the only sane person in the room. Hannah isn't stable. She has a history of emotional issues, impulsive behavior, and God knows what else we don't know about. Hannah's hand flew to her mouth, her breath catching in disbelief. Stability? She had held her entire life together with fraying threads. Worked, studied, raised Noah alone before Tyler came into their lives. She had never once been unstable. Linda kept going, warming to her own cruelty. I've watched her for 5 years. She's unpredictable. She shuts down. She isolates. She cries over nothing. She's not fit to raise a child. Tyler exhaled sharply. She's been through a lot, Mom. That's not the same as being unstable. But Linda brushed that aside with a firm shake of her head. No, Tyler. She needs help, professional help. And Noah deserves a stable home. He deserves a real family. There was a beat of silence, a long, cold one. Then Linda dropped the real bomb. Chase and his wife can't have children. Hannah felt everything inside her go still. Linda continued softly, like she was discussing charity, not dismantling a family. They've tried for years. They've prayed for a child. And here you are, raising Chase's son, while his rightful place is with Chase's own household. Tyler's voice sharpened. Noah is my son. Linda didn't flinch. Not by blood. The words sliced through the air, sharp as a blade. And that matters, Tyler, Linda said. Blood is everything, especially in Charleston. You know it. I know it. Our whole family knows it. Hannah pressed a trembling hand against the wall to steady herself. Her legs felt weak. Linda leaned in. Hannah could hear the rustle of her clothes as she moved. Chase and his wife could give him a better life, a real future. And you, well, you could finally start over. Have your own children. Clean, uncomplicated children. Hannah's knees nearly buckled. Clean? Uncomplicated? Was that how Linda viewed Noah, her son? As if he were some stain on the family tree? Tyler's voice wavered, a mix of anger and disbelief. Are you listening to yourself? You're talking about taking a child away from his mother. Linda didn't soften, not even a little. If she's unfit, it won't be taking. It will be correcting. Then she added almost casually, there are legal paths for this. I've looked into them. Hannah felt her chest tighten. Legal paths. Legal. Linda wasn't just spiteful. She was strategizing. I have connections, Linda continued. People who can document her instability, her outbursts, her history. Courts listen to evidence, and the evidence speaks for itself. Hannah's breath grew shallow. She could hear her pulse in her ears. She pressed herself flatter against the wall, gripping the molding to keep from collapsing. Tyler sounded horrified. Mom, you can't be serious. Linda's answer was chillingly calm. I am dead serious. That boy belongs with Chase. And if you loved your brother, if you loved your family, you'd agree with me. Southern loyalty, family honor, bloodlines. Linda wielded them like weapons. And in that moment, trembling in the shadows of her own home, Hannah realized something awful and undeniable. Linda didn't just dislike her. She wanted to erase her, and she was willing to use the law to do it. The room fell quiet after Linda's final sentence, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that hummed with something dangerous, something approaching revelation. Hannah remained pressed against the hallway wall, her pulse still uneven. When Linda spoke again, slowly, deliberately, as though she were dropping the last piece of a puzzle she had spent years arranging. Tyler, he's your brother's child. Hannah's entire body went cold. Tyler's voice came out sharp. Mom, what are you talking about? Linda inhaled a tense, heavy breath. Noah is Chase's son. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. The air disappeared from Hannah's lungs, so abruptly she had to bite down on her own tongue to keep from gasping. Chase! His name echoed in her skull like a cruel joke. Tyler sounded stunned, disbelieving, hurt. Why would you say something like that? Why bring Chase into this? Linda spoke with the certainty of someone confident her version of the truth could not be challenged. Because it's time you knew. Chase told me everything years ago. Hannah's hand clamped over her mouth, nails digging into her skin. She squeezed her eyes shut, but the memories still surged, unchosen, unstoppable. Savannah, that humid summer, that brief, dizzy romance that felt like the first freedom she'd ever tasted. Chase Miller had been older, self-assured, charming in a way that made her feel seen after years of shrinking herself to survive her father's rage. He took her to rooftop bars, showed her quiet corners of the city she'd never noticed, talked about dreams and futures and possibilities. She allowed herself to believe in him, maybe because he was the first man who didn't remind her of everything she ran from. But when she told him she was pregnant, the transformation was immediate. The warmth vanished. The softness hardened. The promises faded into silence. And then came the words, cold, rehearsed, practiced. This isn't mine. I'm not getting pulled into this. He said she was lying. He said she was trying to trap him. He said she wanted his family's money. His family's money. She did not understand then what those words truly meant. What followed felt like a nightmare. He refused to meet. He refused to acknowledge her. His family's attorney called instead. A contract. Waiving responsibility. Stating formally that Chase Miller accepted no role, no ties, no rights. Hannah signed it because she had no choice. She was alone, and she never wanted a man so unwilling to be a father anywhere near her child. She left Savannah before the ink fully dried, her heart in pieces, her future rewritten without her consent. She never saw Chase again, until now, when his name was resurrected inside her home, inside her marriage, weaponized by the one woman who despised her most. Back in the living room, Tyler sounded shaken. Mom, if this were true, why didn't you tell me? Why hide this for so long? Linda's answer was immediate. Because you didn't need that burden. Because Chase made his choices, and I wasn't about to let you follow the same mistake. Hannah pressed harder into the wall as reality crashed into place. Chase, was Tyler's older brother, estranged, distant, always spoken of as the rebellious one. And Linda had known, she had known all of it. She had known who Chase was to Hannah. She had known the truth behind Noah's birth. She had known the contract existed. She had known the betrayal, the abandonment, and she said nothing. For years, letting Hannah build a marriage, a family, a future, over the bones of a secret she alone controlled. Hannah's knees weakened. Worlds that had once felt entirely separate, her past, her present, her nightmare with Chase, her fragile peace with Tyler, collided violently in an instant. She didn't choose this convergence. She didn't want this revelation. But it was here now, and it was shattering her life from the inside out. The house seemed to shrink around Hannah as she clung to the wall. The conversation in the living room twisting into something far more sinister than she had ever imagined. The revelation about Chase had already cracked her world open. But what came next turned that crack into a fracture. Tyler was still speaking, voice shaking. "Mom, even if any of this were true, which I doubt, Noah is Hannah's son. He belongs with her." Linda answered, quietly, almost gently. That was what made it terrifying. "Not if the courts say she's unfit." Those words hit Hannah like a physical blow to the stomach. Her breath left her in a sharp, desperate exhale. She pressed both hands to the wall now, fingers splayed, heart racing toward a panic she couldn't control. Unfit, unfit. Linda wasn't throwing insults anymore. She was laying out strategy. Tyler sounded horrified. "Unfit? Are you even hearing yourself?" Linda spoke as if she had been preparing this for years. Hannah has a documented history of instability, emotional volatility, episodes of panic, irrational behavior around the pregnancy. All I have to do is gather the right statements. Hannah's skin turned cold. Documented? Episodes? What was she talking about? Linda's explanation sliced through the air, each word deliberate. "You remember those moments, Tyler, when you told me she would shut down or cry for hours, when she couldn't sleep, when she panicked every time someone knocked at the door. I told you then, those were signs of deeper issues." Hannah felt her pulse spike violently. Those weren't episodes. Those were the aftermath of her father's violence, the echoes of trauma she had spent years burying, moments she thought she had kept private, moments she trusted Tyler with, moments Linda must have sifted through like evidence. The sound of paper rustled, a folder opening. Hannah's heart slammed against her ribs. Linda continued calmly. "I've been collecting notes, dates, observations. She has a history of stress-induced breakdowns. Doctors care about patterns." It was the transcript brought to life, the same cold precision, the same plan to document incapacity, to fabricate a narrative of instability. Tyler's voice broke. "You kept records? About my wife?" Linda didn't hesitate. "For Noah's sake, yes." The world tilted again. Hannah's ears rang so loudly she could barely hear her own breaths. Chase's name, the contract, the decades-old betrayal. Those were horrifying enough. But this was calculated, designed, a blueprint for taking Noah away from her. Because Linda was right about one thing. With DNA evidence connecting Noah to Chase, Tyler's brother, Chase suddenly had a claim, a path, a legal opening. And Chase had money, connections, a family with a long, polished name in Savannah society. He could afford attorneys who specialized in dismantling women, like Hannah. He could paint her past however he wanted. He could twist her father's abuse into something that made her look unstable. He could reopen the old contract to make it appear she had something to hide. Hannah's head throbbed. She squeezed her eyes shut as nausea rose, her pulse drumming so fast it felt like her veins were vibrating. Her breaths came in shallow, uneven bursts. The hallway blurred. They could take him. They could really take Noah. Hannah pressed a hand against her chest as the realization clawed its way up her spine. This wasn't about gossip anymore. This wasn't about Linda disliking her. This wasn't about jealousy or pride or Southern family politics. Linda was building a case, piece by piece, lie by lie, paper by paper. And Chase, God help her, could help her win it. Hannah's entire body trembled. Her legs threatened to collapse beneath her. Her heart raced so violently she wondered if it might stop altogether. Linda wasn't merely cruel. She was strategic, relentless, and dangerous in a way Hannah had never truly understood, not until now. And if Hannah didn't find a way to protect herself, to protect her son, she knew exactly what Linda intended to take next. Everything. Hannah's pulse was still uneven. Her breath caught high in her chest when Tyler finally snapped. "Mom, stop." His voice was louder than she had ever heard it, cracked with exhaustion, hurt, and a rising anger he could no longer choke down. From her place in the hallway, Hannah felt the shift like a physical tremor through the walls. Linda, seated rigidly on the edge of the couch, didn't flinch. "I will not stop. Not when that child's future is at stake." Tyler shook his head fiercely. "Noah is our future, mine and Hannah's. He stays with us." Linda's eyes narrowed, her voice cooling into something venomous. "You are blind, Tyler. That woman has already ruined one son's life, and now she's ruining yours." Hannah's fingers twitched against the wall. One son? She meant Chase. She meant the past Hannah had never intended to drag into this home. Linda pressed on, emboldened by her own cruelty. "Chase told me everything years ago. The lies, the manipulation, the way she forced herself into that pregnancy to tie herself to him." Tyler snapped back. "You don't know what happened. You've never known. You've just hated her from day one." Linda's voice rose, sharp and brittle. "She destroyed Chase's life, and now she's destroying yours. 2 sons, too, and you're still defending her." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Tyler stood abruptly, pacing once before stopping in front of his mother. "You need to stop talking about her like that." Linda rose to her feet as well, small but formidable, the full force of her fury exposed. "I am telling you the truth, Tyler. She dragged her past filth into this family. She lied to you. She brought shame and chaos into our home. And you." Her voice cracked into something close to a sob of indignation. "You let her." Tyler's jaw tightened. His hands shook at his sides. The final thread snapped. "If you don't drop this, I swear, Mom, so help me, I will throw you out." The room went silent. It was the same moment the transcript described. The son, usually quiet, finally reaching the breaking point where he threatens to expel the very woman who raised him. A moment no one in that living room ever expected to see. Linda stared at him, stunned, not because she doubted he would do it, but because the son she thought she controlled no longer stood where she placed him. And that was when Hannah stepped forward. She walked slowly into the room, though her legs trembled with every step. Her hands were cold. Her throat felt tight. But her voice, when she finally spoke, came out steadier than she ever expected. "I'm done listening from the hallway." Both of them turned toward her. Tyler's face softened instantly, guilt flickering in his eyes. Linda's face hardened, her lips curving into a thin, contemptuous line, as if Hannah's mere presence confirmed every accusation she had just hurled. But Hannah didn't look away. She had listened long enough. She had hidden long enough. She had been quiet long enough. She stepped fully into the center of the room, meeting Linda's glare head-on. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't break. It simply existed, calm, low, unwavering. "You don't get to talk about me like I'm not here, or like I'm trash, or like I don't love my son." Linda inhaled sharply, preparing to unleash more venom. But Tyler stepped between them, torn, eyes darting from his wife to his mother, caught between loyalty, love, guilt, and years of emotional conditioning. Hannah saw the conflict in him. She saw the pain in him, and she felt her own resolve solidify like stone. Linda's hatred was no longer a quiet background hum. It was exposed, unmasked, undeniable. And Hannah, finally, refused to be silent anymore. Linda didn't back down. If anything, Hannah's presence seemed to ignite something darker in her, something years in the making. Her eyes, sharp and bright with anger, fixed on Hannah as if she were finally revealing the truth she had rehearsed 1,000 times. But when she spoke, she didn't speak to Hannah. She spoke to Tyler. "You think I'm cruel? You think I'm meddling." Linda's voice trembled, not with fear, but with a furious, wounded pride. "I have been protecting you your entire life, protecting our family from disgrace." Tyler stared at her, stunned. Disgrace? From what? Linda's laugh was brittle. From being thrown away by your own relatives. Hannah's breath caught. Tyler blinked hard, confused. Linda pressed on, her voice rising. "Chase married into a wealthy family in Savannah. Old money, old influence, families who watch their lineage like hawks. You don't know them the way I do. If they had discovered Chase had a child out of wedlock with a girl like her," she jabbed a finger in Hannah's direction, disgust radiating from every syllable, "they would have cut him off. Completely." The words hung heavy in the air. Hannah felt something in her chest twist painfully. Chase's rejection, his cruelty, his insistence she stay silent. It all made horrifying sense now. It wasn't about running from responsibility. It was about preserving his status, his marriage, his inheritance, his image. Linda took a step closer to Tyler, desperation overtaking her earlier cold control. "You don't understand, sweetheart. Chase was supposed to be the pride of this family, the one who would lift us all. You were always the steady one, dependable. But Chase, he had potential." Hannah's stomach dropped. Linda continued, voice cracking. "And she nearly ruined it. She nearly ruined him. If word got out, if his wife's family found out, Chase would have been discarded, erased. They would have cast him aside like trash." Tyler swallowed hard. "So you lied. For him." Linda shook her head fiercely. "I protected him. I saved him from losing everything." Her voice faltered, and in that moment the ugly truth spilled out, jagged and unfiltered. "Chase was always my first priority, my first son, my best hope. You." She stopped herself, but the damage was done. Tyler straightened slowly. A silent, devastating understanding settled over him. Hannah saw it, the way his expression changed, the way clarity washed through him like cold water. For years, he believed his mother's coldness toward him was simply worry, or high standards, or generational distance. But now he saw it for what it was. Favoritism, obsession, a willingness to destroy others to protect the son she loved more. "Mom," Tyler's voice was low, disbelieving. "You would have taken Noah away. You would have torn my family apart to keep Chase's reputation clean." Linda's face crumpled. "I would have put Noah where he belonged, with the rightful branch of this family. The right branch, the wealthy branch, the branch that mattered." Hannah's knees nearly buckled. Noah wasn't a child to Linda. He was currency, a legacy piece, a way to preserve the image she worshipped. The rooms felt too small, the air too thin. Hannah pressed a trembling hand to her chest, trying to steady the storm inside her, the fear, the rage, the exhaustion that had built over 5 relentless years. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "Noah is not your pawn." Linda snapped toward her. "You don't get to decide that. You don't belong in this family, and you never will." Hannah's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. "I belong wherever my son is." Tyler stepped between them, his face pale, his jaw tight, his voice breaking with something final. "Mom, this ends now." Linda froze. For the first time, Real fear flickered across her expression. Not fear of losing the argument, fear of losing control. Hannah stood there, shaking, drained, hollow, but unmovable. She would not lose her child. Not to Linda. Not to Chase. Not to anyone. Linda didn't slam the door when she left. That would have been too honest, too revealing. Instead, she stepped outside with the same rigid posture she entered with, her spine straight, her jaw tight, her heels clicking sharply on the wooden porch. The door closed behind her with a deceptively soft thud, a quiet sound that somehow felt louder than any scream. And then the house fell still. No more accusations. No more venom. No more truth twisted into weapons. Just silence. Tyler stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the closed door long after his mother had disappeared down the walkway. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. His hands curled into fists at his sides, not from anger anymore, but from the weight of everything he had just learned. The world he had known, the mother he had trusted, the life he thought was stable. All of it had cracked open within a single hour. Hannah stayed where she was, barely a few feet behind him. Her body still shook from the confrontation. Not visibly, but deep in the muscles of her arms and her ribs, in the back of her throat. She felt hollow and full at the same time, her nerves raw, but her thoughts unbearably clear. Neither of them spoke. Eventually Tyler turned. His eyes were red around the edges, the expression on his face shattered and confused. He opened his mouth as if to explain, to apologize, to reach for something that would make sense of the chaos, but nothing came out. There were no words for this. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. Hannah stepped forward first. She didn't say anything. She didn't accuse him. She didn't collapse into his arms. She simply moved past him, her footsteps soft on the hardwood floor, and climbed the stairs to Noah's room. Her son lay curled on his stomach, tiny hand tucked under his cheek, hair sticking to his forehead, completely oblivious, completely safe for now. Hannah knelt beside his crib and slid her hands under his small, warm body. Noah stirred but didn't wake as she lifted him, pressing him gently to her chest. His weight, his warmth, the smell of baby lotion and milk. It grounded her in a way nothing else could. For 5 years, she had tried to build a peaceful life. For 5 years, she had tried to blend past and present, to create something whole out of all the broken pieces she carried. But tonight stripped away the illusion that anything had ever been simple. Her past with Chase, her marriage to Tyler, Linda's manipulation, the lies, the secrecy, the decisions made without her, around her, against her. The foundation of her life had always been cracked. She just hadn't seen the fractures until they splintered open all at once. She kissed Noah's forehead, lingering there, letting the warmth soothe the tremor in her chest. She whispered nothing, just breathed him in, steadying herself. Because now the path forward was unmistakable. Downstairs, Tyler finally sank onto the couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. He wasn't angry at Hannah. He wasn't angry at Noah. He wasn't even angry at Chase. He was grieving the mother he once believed was fiercely loyal, grieving the brother he now understood far less than he thought, grieving the trust that had been shattered so cleanly he didn't know where to begin piecing it back together. When Hannah reappeared at the top of the stairs, Noah asleep against her shoulder, Tyler looked up. Their eyes met across the quiet room, not with blame, not with anger, but with a fragile, trembling understanding. Their lives had changed tonight. Their marriage had been forced open, revealing secrets neither of them asked for. Nothing had been resolved. Nothing had been fixed. There was no triumph in the air, only clarity. And clarity sometimes hurt more than anything else. Hannah held Noah closer as she walked back down the stairs. She didn't stand tall. She didn't feel strong. She didn't feel victorious. But she felt resolute. She would protect her son. She would guard him fiercely. She would navigate whatever storm came next, not with the illusion of safety, but with the truth finally laid bare. The house stayed quiet, dim, trembling around them. And somewhere in that quiet, a new resolve began to take shape, soft, fragile, cinematic, like the first flicker of light before dawn.